Hello, everyone. My name's Andy. I'm one of the 3 co-founders at JustFund. And I wanted to start tonight by putting you guys in the shoes of one of our first customers, a customer that we met while we were going through the Startmate Accelerator in 2022. So for the next 6 minutes, you are Kate. Kate called us, 54 years old, living on the Sunshine Coast with her 3 beautiful kids, working part-time as a teacher. On paper, Kate's living an incredibly normal life. No one would know that the reason Kate called us is that she was trying to escape an abusive relationship. She'd been married for 17 years, and she'd been on the phone to ANZ for weeks, asking them to lend her the 30 grand she needed to relocate herself and her children from her former partner. And I can still remember her words. They were so simple. It was over and over again. I've banked with ANZ my whole life. I've banked with ANZ my whole life. I've done everything right. I've paid off my mortgage. Why won't they lend me the $30,000 I need when I need it the most? The reality is, Kate's story isn't unique at all. She is one of the hundreds and thousands of people who go through divorce and separation in Australia each year, who are forgotten by traditional finance. They just don't fit. How does a traditional lender work? They look at 3 things: income, credit score, and expense ratios. And now put yourself in Kate's shoes, standing in front of a traditional bank. It's an immediate no. Computer says no before it's even turned on. Single mum, low income, average credit score, application denied. At JustFund, we think and see Kate very, very differently. We're transforming access for people going through separation and divorce by removing the financial barriers that prevent them from rebuilding their lives fairly and safely. It's not something that we talk about particularly commonly, but divorce is pretty easily one of the most common, challenging, and often unfair things that anyone can go through. So if you look to the person to your left and you look to the person to your right, if both of those people get married, chances are one of them is going to get divorced. Now, if you're here with your spouse, that's incredibly awkward. And now that I think about it, my parents are in the audience as well, and hold it together for the kids. But the reality is, for the hundreds of thousands of people who go through separation each year, finding access to funds to pay your legal fees is extremely challenging. That's universal, no matter where you are in life. We had a borrower this week who is earning about $480,000 a year, and his words were, Andy, no one plans for this. It's not in the budget. I've done really well, but it's not as if I've set aside the money to get divorced. That'd be insane. And that's true of someone even at his stature. But if you've been the primary carer of children, if you've been not working because you've been raising kids, or, like Kate, you have been the victim of domestic violence or financial control, the scale of the barriers and the level of indignity and hardship of going through that process is just impossible to comprehend. It's heartbreaking. And at JustFund, we believe that no one should be stuck in an unhealthy or unsafe relationship. We believe that no one should be forced to settle for less than they deserve or self-represent because they can't afford to pay their own legal fees. By delivering purpose-built funding solutions, we are empowering people to take control of their futures and rebuild their lives. And so what does that mean for Kate? Well, when we see Kate, we don't see single mum, no income, average credit score. We see someone who's contributed meaningfully to her family for the better part of 2 decades, and whose family law entitlement means she's going to receive, her fair share of the asset pool for division between her and her former partner. We don't know how long it's going to take Kate to reach that settlement, but using our model for predicting family law entitlement, we can very confidently lend Kate the $30,000 she needs to start to move on with her life and to protect her children. And that's exactly what we did. And Kate forms part of this graph on your screen tonight, which is where we were up to at the end of Startmate in 2022. 4 months in, we're at $200,000 in credit originated. We were this kind of weird mix of stoked and really confused as well, because we're obviously thrilled with getting off to a good start, and our mission seemed to be taking hold, but we're also mortified by the urgency and scale of the problem. We were naive as to the scale of that problem, both in Australia and around the world. We really were just getting started. 3.5 years on, we've funded thousands of gates, and we've funded or provided credit of just over $200 million as of last month to help them to rebuild their lives. Thank you. Thanks, heaps. That's 22% month-on-month growth, which we're really, really proud of. It is also the result of a phenomenal network that we've built from a go-to-market perspective, which is distribution via the law firms, so they can just focus on being lawyers. And we've won awards, the Finnies, for Startup of the Year and other things. But what means the most to us is that on that board, 75% of our clients are the primary carers of children, 65% are the victims of domestic violence or financial control, and on average, they earn about 1/3 of what their former partners do in terms of salary. So we really are leveling the playing field, and we're now delivering a solution at scale. And that's really, really powerful for our mission. But we're doing it with an unrelenting commitment to client service. You might say, oh, you're a fintech, Andy. That's nice to have as a wrapper around what you do. But the reality is it's the core of what we do, because we're dealing with people. And to do what we do without heart would make no sense. And the figure on the board, the figure on the board is like we're in high school. The Net Promoter Score of 86 and the industry average of 12 really speaks to that. I'm probably the more nerdier of the co-founders. I'm focused on risk and making sure we do get repaid by Kate, who has repaid us. I would also say that if you ask me what's one of the most powerful risk metrics you guys live by, it's this. It's that if you develop a meaningful connection to your clients, to your borrowers, your customers, whatever you want to call them, if you develop that connection and they're happy with the service you're providing, they are far more likely to repay. So in all respects, this being our North Star makes sense more than anything else. In terms of where we're going and what's next, we came at this whole problem set as pretty high and mighty lawyers, and we were a little bit blinkered, access to justice, access to justice. But what our customers tell us is, Andy, a dollar's a dollar. So if you pay $1 for my legal fees, I can put food on the table. If you pay $1 in my legal fees, I can pay $1 for the school fees. And that just goes to show that we've really underestimated the scale of the financial crossroads that is separation. And so going deeper into that journey to be able to help more people is precisely what we want to do. We've also launched in New Zealand, where the story is just the same. I said earlier that separation is universally difficult, and it's absolutely the case that our mission will expand beyond New Zealand into other countries as well. We don't know exactly where it's going to end, but one thing is certain, which is that we know that it started with Startmate, with incredible mentors, and for that we are immensely grateful, and we always will be. We don't know exactly where it's going to end up, but whatever we do, if we receive reviews on the screen like we did from Kate, we'll be incredibly happy. Thank you very much.